Going to talk a little bit about how I heat my aquarium. It was one of the bigger concerns I had in setting up such a big tank. The tank itself is 770 gallons. It's 10 feet long, 3 feet wide, 4 feet tall. And the sump is 6 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 20 inches tall. 150 gallon sump, which I run at about 60, maybe 70%. So total water volume is around 850 gallons. And it was a big concern because heating large amounts of water is expensive. When I actually first got the tank, I put goldfish in it because I was worried heating it was going to be insanely expensive every month. So I bought a heating system, and that's what I'm going to kind of dive into some details on. But I bought the heaters and I tested it out, and it turned out that the tank used about 350 kilowatt hours a month, in that range, during the colder parts of the year. So basically three months out of the year is about what it would pull in terms of electricity. The tank is in an unheated room, so that was more of a challenge. And it does get down into, it gets below freezing where I live. We don't get snow, but it can get into the upper 20s, even mid 20s on some colder winter nights. So that kind of presented a challenge. The room is insulated, and I found that keeping tight lids on the tank, as well as using rigid foam insulation on the back panel, and I also have it on the back side of the sump, helped keep the heat where I wanted it, so kept it from escaping. It also helped that the tank is made out of acrylic. Acrylic is a better insulator than glass. Glass is a little more dense, and you're going to lose more heat through a glass tank. So it helped that the tank was acrylic, and thick acrylic at that. But what I ended up buying was 6 300-watt Eheim heaters that are controlled by a Renko ETC temperature controller. So it's 1800 watts, and I'll get down there and show you a little more detail what I'm talking about. But just so you see the direction of flow of the water comes down into the sump through 3 2-inch drains. It goes through these filter socks, and then it makes its way from left to right through some more filter media, and it flows through these 4 holes in this baffle. And what you're looking at there in the bottom left, right here, let me kind of center it, is the Renko temperature probe, and that is sensing the temperature of the water that is farthest from the heating chamber. Now, it sounds kind of counterintuitive or crazy that I would say that the water that temperature probe is sensing is farthest from the heaters, because it looks like it's about an inch away. But if you think about the flow of water through my system, through the aquarium, and down through the sump, the water flowing past that temperature probe is actually the farthest from being heated. So the water that is in this chamber was most recently heated, and the pump sends it up into the tank, comes out the side of the sump, and there you can see that 2-inch tubing goes up to the aquarium, and the water isn't seen until it comes back through the drains and flows through these 4 baffles. So that's why I say that the water that probe is sensing is actually the farthest from passing through the heating chamber. Hopefully that makes sense. I know that's I'm probably not explaining it very well, but I did want to point out that the temperature probe, super important to keep them secure and keep them where you want them. So I have these two pieces of tape that I've placed on there to make sure that the probe doesn't get bumped out, either of the sump entirely or just bumped to the point where it's detecting the temperature of air and not the actual water, because that would cause some major problems. If it's sensing the air temperature and the air temperature is colder than your set point for the Renko controller, it's going to keep heating and it's going to boil your sump essentially. So, or whatever you have, wherever you have your heaters, the temperature is just going to keep rising, keep climbing. So keep it secured. That's what I'm getting at there. But that probe goes to my Renko controller, which is right here. This smaller wire, and I actually have it turned off right now because I don't need any heat in the summertime. So I just shut down the heating system entirely in the summer because the water temperature actually gets too warm. But let's see here. So the six heaters come into these power strips. So 3 of the heaters are in that power strip. And then I've got another 3 of the heaters going into this power strip. And then those 2 power strips, which the heaters are plugged into, come into the Renko temperature controller. So that's on the left and the right side, or I guess the top and the bottom in this frame. And then that cable coming out of the bottom is going directly to the dedicated 20 amp circuit, the dedicated 20 amp receptacle that powers all the heaters. So the reason I'm making this video is I came out a couple days ago and I was just kind of messing around in the sump area, taking a look at the Renko and the heaters, and I noticed that my power strip that I had the Renko plugged into had this burn mark. I about had a heart attack. It's not what you want to see. I don't know why this happened. This is rated for 20 amps, so it should be able to handle 1800 watts no problem. But I don't know if this happened recently. Honestly, I haven't checked it since I initially set up the heating system 10 years ago. So it could have been like this for years, or this could have happened this last winter. The heating system was working, the temperature of the water was fine, so I don't know what or when happened here. But the plug was a little melted. You're probably wondering why there's no cable coming in and out of this thing. I took it apart. So I pulled the cable out of it to see if there was any damage to it, and there really wasn't. This was the only issue. But in any case, that's the importance of not running more wattage than you should through a circuit. And I was below the maximum allowable by quite a bit. They say that you shouldn't run more than 80% of a circuit's maximum capacity. So a 20 amp circuit can handle 2400 watts. So at 80%, if you're running 80% of those 2400 watts, 20 amps, that means that you can essentially run 1920 watts or 16 amps on the circuit, which I was below that. So I don't know what happened, but kind of highlights the importance of if I had been running another 300 watt heater, that little burnt plug maybe could have escalated. If I was running 2400 watts, I could have had a real problem. Hopefully the circuit breaker would do its job and it would shut down, but you never know. So you don't want to play around with, exceeding a circuit's capacity. Trying to think if there was anything else I had to say about the heating system. Yeah, just be aware of what you have plugged into other outlets that may be on the same circuit. So in my case, I have a dedicated 20 amp circuit for my heaters, and there's only one plug. In most cases in a house, you're going to have multiple plugs that are a lot of them may be on the same circuit. So you could be running your heaters on one plug, and then a receptacle, and you have your pump plugged into a receptacle that's a couple feet away, and you think, oh, it's a different plug, it's a different receptacle, it's a different circuit. That might not be the case. So you want to be careful with that, and just be aware of how many amps or the total wattage of all the different devices you're running through a circuit. I guess I could shout out to, I don't have any sponsors. I'm not really a YouTuber, even though I do upload videos. I just like sharing them with the people that ask to see and learn about my system. So I'm really not trying to make this a business or what I do for a living. It's just kind of for fun and to share with people that are interested. But you can get pre-wired Renko controllers. I've bought them through Gemco in the past. They're kind of a fish, what's the word I'm looking for, like people that run fish rooms. The guy's a distributor for people that run fish rooms or have like breeding setups and multiple tanks. So super knowledgeable about setting up a heating system that's going to help you out kind of achieve your goals. But every situation is specific to your setup. So what kind of applies to my case might not be ideal for someone else. Like I mentioned, if you had a glass tank and you didn't have lids, in a situation where you're in an unheated room, maybe a garage, something like that, you might need quite a bit more wattage to be able to maintain tropical temperatures. I'm probably on the lower end, running only 1800 watts for 850 total gallons. But it does seem to work. When I was testing it, the heaters would come on for about 4 hours a day, and that was during like the coldest winter months. And the water held temperature pretty well. But yeah, 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours. I guess maybe when it got really cold, it was going 6 hours. When you're pulling 1800 watts, that starts to add up. And recently I just got a solar system installed, so I have solar panels on my roof of my house, and now I'm not worried about it at all. So wintertime for these guys, they're probably going to appreciate the fact that I'm going to run the heater a little warmer than I normally would, because my solar panels are going to produce the electricity that I need to keep the temps at you know, 76, 77, 78 versus I would get as low as 70 degrees, I think, was the lowest I would run it, and they seemed to be fine. They would eat a little bit less, but they did okay. Anyways, that's what I had. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you out if I can. If not, I forget the guy's name at Gemco, but he's super knowledgeable, and he'd be able to help you out.